Hiya. Now, I've had to apply for personal independence payment, or PIP, so I thought I'd give my experience in case someone else is having to do the same. To begin with, what you are seeing in the pictures are my assessment results. I passed my PIP, and these are the points given for my disability. The DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, use a point scoring system to assess disability level. You might want to pause and have a look at them when I'm finished. Now, it seems that everyone on illness benefits is being moved over to PIP, and I received a letter about it telling me that my DLA, my disability living allowance, was being stopped, and that if I wanted to continue to claim disability benefits, I had to claim for PIP. I was on the lower rate care and the middle rate mobility of DLA. I was given a telephone number to ring to begin the process. It seems none of my current information would get passed over from the DLA, and I had to start a new claim from the beginning. Nigel rang the number given, and that began a telephone interview which lasted about 20 minutes. He was able to do most of it, but a couple of times I had to give consent. The questions asked were about my GP or specialist contact details, bank account details, that sort of thing. It was also a lot of giving consent after listening to the woman read off paragraphs of what seemed to be sort of legal document type information. The woman was actually quite difficult to understand. She had a strong Indian accent, and she spoke very fast. She was reading off the information and required the answers to be specific, presumably so she could fill in on-screen boxes. She then said the PIP form would be in the post for me within a week or so for me to fill in. Now, the form was about 40 pages long, and I had 3 weeks to fill it in and send it back. It is possible to ask for a time extension, but we were able to get it done in time. I'm not able to write much, so Nigel had to fill it in, us doing a little bit a day together. Nigel not being able to write for long periods because of brain fog and because of hand cramps. The 25% group, which is a support group for those with severe ME, they have a set of guidelines that can help with filling out the PIP form. They tell you what is important to mention, how many points you score for different things, so just search for 25% group PIP form. If you're thinking of claiming or are filling out a form, be prepared to get a text or a letter from the DWP during this time threatening to stop your money if you don't get the form in on time, as we got both. It's bullying, but it's not personal, so don't let it frighten you. The questions were very much about physical ability, food preparation and eating, drinking, dressing and washing, and general mobility. Also mental health, communication and mixing with people, budgeting capabilities, reading and whether you can plan and fulfill a journey. Many of the questions came with tick boxes for yes, no and sometimes, and there's a place where you can write a bit more information. Bear in mind that they interpret the word sometimes as meaning you can do that task, whatever it is. There's always been a problem with benefits claim forms and ME because the questions just don't fit the illness. On my ESA forms a few years ago, one question was, can you lift an empty cardboard box? Now, a monkey could do that, but it doesn't mean they can go to work. The questions now aren't as daft as the DLA or ESA forms, but some were difficult to answer for me. An example being, do you need help or need aids when washing? Well, I don't wash as I'm too ill. However, I would still put yes and explained in the box available about not being able to wash. The same with the question, do you need help or use aids when preparing a meal? I don't prepare my meals. I can't get to the kitchen. So I would tick the yes box and explain that my carer was my aid. And aids can be such things as straws, support cushions, grab rails, cups with lids, plastic utensils, as well as the obvious like commodes and stair lifts. And when you fill it in, fill it as if it was on your worst day and what help you would need, even if you don't get that help. Include copies of your care plan if you have one. occupational therapist information, medical assessment notes, or any other medical forms that show the severity of your condition and how it affects your life. Now, about 4 weeks after returning the form, I had a medical assessment. Now, the assessor was pleasant enough, very efficient. However, she didn't show a shred of sympathy, but then I guess that's not her job. She fired questions at me, and much of it was what was covered in the form, so it's worth having a copy of the form and of what you wrote. The whole assessment took about 40 minutes. The assessor will ask you what your symptoms are, so you use this opportunity to tell the assessor the real extent of how this illness affects you, plus recovery time, how repetitive movement exacerbates symptoms, the time spent resting, that sort of thing. As I found that later in the assessment, the type of questions didn't always allow me to reflect how bad things are. Again, like the form, the questions weren't suited to my situation. She obviously had tick boxes to fill in, which I didn't fit into. She also assumed that I used a commode because I had one in my room, so I had to explain that I used a bedpan. You do have to really spell it out to them. The assessor asked me if I could plan and fulfill a journey. Now, I don't go on journeys. Anyway, I said no, I would struggle to read a map and that I'm bedridden. However, I was given no points on that, and my results declared that I was able to plan and fulfill a journey, despite the result also saying that I was unable to move 1 metre. It was also said on my results, on the result letter, that I had no problem reading and communicating, despite me saying that I can't always talk or read print or view a screen. And as for dealing with finances, she asked me what was 25 pence from a pound, and me giving the right answer seemed to mean that I had no problem managing complex budgeting decisions, when in reality I have days where I can barely count to 10, let alone access any bank accounts. I was also asked about clothing, whether I got dressed or wore night clothes. I said no, because all I wear is a t-shirt, sometimes cut up the back and draped over the front of me if I can't lift myself off the pillow. She said, so did you put that t-shirt on just because I was coming? So it seems that just wearing a t-shirt is classed as getting dressed. However, I was still awarded 2 points out of 8 for needing help dressing, even though I don't get dressed. There is a physical assessment, but when the woman asked if I could stand or do any movement for her, I said I was unable to. So she said she would record that and didn't push me any further. She was okay about it, and it doesn't look like she recorded me as being uncooperative. You do have a right to refuse any physical activity. You are showing these people what you can't do, not what you can do. It's possible that you will have set times where you do activity, like washing, etc., and have to reserve energy for that by resting the rest of the time. So you can't be wasting precious energy on what the assessor wants you to do. So explain that you will suffer from post-exertional malaise if you make extra movement, and you may not be able to do something. You may be able to do something once, but not again, maybe. Repetitive movements can cause a real flare of symptoms. Unfortunately, there is a huge amount of unfairness when it comes to claiming benefits. It's in the DWP's interest to declare people fit for work despite obvious disability. Nigel has been unable to work since about 1994, yet had all of his benefits removed 4 years ago, failing a medical, an appeal and a tribunal. It also meant him losing his blue disability parking badge and exempt from road tax status. In our experience, the DWP staff seem to be unsympathetic and cold, and some do lie. The assessor who came to me made a point that many claimants were false, and she seemed to have the attitude of guilty until proven innocent. After the assessment was finished, she gave me no indication of whether things were in my favour or not, and said I would get a decision in 8 to 10 weeks, and she didn't think my benefits would be stopped during that time, but keep an eye on your bank account because you can't trust them not to stop payments. Then the decision came after about 10 weeks. It was telling me that I was entitled to PIP at the enhanced rate until 2022. So that was my experience Please feel free to comment below about your experience of claiming PIP. It's always helpful to hear what other people have gone through, and I just hope I've given you a little bit of insight. So thank you for watching. Bye.